Hello, hello. So, after seeing a few requests on Discord and Reddit, I decided to do a short tutorial on how to use Principia with an install of KSP RP1, RP2, whatever you may call it nowadays, to get something from the Earth or from a lower Earth orbit to a moon. And so with this tutorial, I just want to show on part one um, that we use an installation that is a little bit modified. So we use MechJeb and the Dev on the Dev branch to get a rocket to orbit, and then from that staging orbit to go TLI, so the translunar injection to the moon. And using the tools that Principia gives us, and using the physics, the big boys physics, so to say, compared to the stock KSP physics that rely on just the sphere of influence. Right. Um, so this would mean that we need some additional tools to install this with our KSP installation. And so, for example, if you've done the Express installation with the RP1, there are some tools that you may need to get so to recreate what we'll be doing today in the tutorial. First one is to switch to the dev branch of MechJeb because that's continuously being developed. It's optimized for Principia. You can get this on this page. I can put this also in the description of the video. You can stop the video. Latest release is about a month ago from the time of this video, and it really changes a lot. It gives you way more flexibility and more options, not just getting something to orbit, but also for a little bit more advanced stuff. Also, I mean, we've been talking about this, and this is the main reason we've been doing this video, is Principia itself. So link will also be down in the description. Download the latest release as time of the video. It's July 24 right now, so it's cleaner. I don't know how to pronounce that. But yeah, that's the version. Just download it here, put it in your games data folder, and you should be good to go. The last tool we need, or I wouldn't say need, but makes life a bit more easier, is the DeltaV Map. There are some out there, so I use this one. Also, link's going to be provided, and it tells you when you design a rocket, what you want to go for and what your rocket needs to be in terms of performance and goals, and yeah, how to engineer your rocket with the right delta V provided to get you from A to B. So the first part would obviously be to get from the Earth to the orbit. And so I would be using, I mean, right now we're focusing on the moon, right? But I would be using the DeltaV map to plan my trip and to see if I have the rockets, especially when I'm going with programs and the tooling of parts. Do I have a booster rocket that's actually capable of delivering the payload to orbit? And from there on, from the orbit, I built the spacecraft to do the task that needs to be done. Doesn't have to be the most optimized way I do this. It's just how I operate within KSP. So I know this for a fact by heart. So to say, if I'm in low Earth orbit, I want to go to translunar injection um, or to moon transfer. I need about 3,200 to be safe kilometers per second. Usually when I do transfer, it's run about like 3,140, 3,150 to achieve optimal results. But just to make sure that you have a little bit error margin in there, just keep it in the ballpark range of like 3.2, 3.3 kms. From there on, I have the payload, which was being delivered to, is about like, I think you need 800 kilometers, meters per second on that. Yeah, it's 820 meters per second delta V to actually go into a low moon orbit from that. It depends on what you really want to achieve when you're down there, but that will be the limiting factors or the parameters of the spaceship you design. Once you've done that, um, yeah, use MechJeb to get that rocket you built into orbit, into the staging orbit on Earth, and be sure to plan that launch. I mean, that's really important. Plan it, um, because you want to go into an orbit at the right inclination that gives you the optimal trajectory from there on to just burn, for example, prograde to have an interception. There are tools to help you with that. When it comes to the Express installation, there's the Lunar Transfer Planner. We will take a look at this in a minute. But also there's the transfer planning tool that gives you all the parameters you need. So you might have a booster that gets you into Leo, but it also has to be the right inclination. Right now, for the sake of the video, I'm launching from Cape, but you could be anywhere in the world, and you need to launch at the right inclination, and especially when you're going for Mars or Venus, it might not just be burning east, so 28.55 from Cape. It might be higher. I've had a Venus interception at was like 45 degrees inclination, so your booster needs to get you up to those higher inclinations, but obviously take more delta V. Good. Okay, once you're in orbit, and once we are in orbit, the last thing we need to do is getting to the moon. And from there on, it's the main part of the video. It's going to be we're going to use the tools Principia gives us. We create a flight plan. If we need to optimize it. I can show you how I do how Principia does it. It's since a few releases, I think a few months back, they included an optimized tool for that, and then burn as precise as you can. And this is really important, especially if you're doing long transfers, not just to the moon, but to Mars or anywhere you want to go. Use MechJeb. To be honest, I think MechJeb is not doing that of a great job. It has been fixed, I think, in one of the later releases, to work with Principia nodes, because the navigation modes are quite different. I use KOS. I have a KOS script I've lately stole or downloaded from someone who provided that on Reddit. I can also try to find the GitHub repository for that and share that again. Or if you're really cool and have like those good old Quake 3 arena reaction times where you're just very fast on the keyboard or on the mouse, just try it. It will not be optimal in any case, so you need to correct after that burn, and from there on, yeah, see how it's gonna take you to the object you want to go for. You might need a correction burn in between. That really depends, but right now, looking to the moon, I don't think we need a correction once we got our first burn running. So yeah, let's look at it how it works in I would say real life, but in KSP. So I'm in sandbox mode right now. From one of my earlier playthroughs, which was a European themed playthroughs, I've just loaded a rocket, which is like an Ariane 4 rocket, or it isn't really a precise copy, but more or less just a holder it is. So that's supposed to get something into moon orbit, and my payload. We can just take a quick look here. So this thing here is supposed to be to go into moon orbit. This stage is going to be responsible for the translunar injection, and this stage, and maybe a bit of this stage, is going to be responsible to get us into orbit. So looking at the DeltaV requirements, we can take a look. I don't know if you can really read this. It's kind of small here. So the latest stage is 1,500, so that's more enough to get us in a good orbit and keep some leftovers of DeltaV for maneuvering purposes. And we have a total of we have a reignitable engine up here, the RL10. So we have a total of 7 plus 5, so that's going to be 12, 13.2k delta V. Getting me into orbit, I would usually aim for like 9,300, 9,500, depending on the engines, depending on the thrust by weight ratio, to get me into a low Earth orbit at burning 90 degrees from Cape. And then I need those 3,200 to get me to the moon. So that's more than enough to get me there. I'm starting out with a sea level thrust of 1.11. yeah, it worked out great for me. It might work out different for you and your rockets. It doesn't really matter as long as you have the capable DeltaV to reach your targets. So yeah, let's try to see that in action. And I'm just gonna do some quick explanations on how to use MechJeb in the dev branch because it is different. It looks different. The options are a bit different, but what it does in principle stays the same. Yeah, still potato is loading. So there it is already. I've already pre-filled some stuff in, so I'll be burning like 28.55 here. We'll be using a periapsis 200 by 200. And from there on we have that staging settings for MechJeb. So if I would use it like this now, like it's predefined, just go engage autopilot, it will calculate, and yeah, it will show me that it's going to be a screwed up orbit, and it's not going to happen. So why is it not going to do it? It's going to burn through all 3 stages and then optimize on the last stage, that the one's supposed to be for the moon orbit. So I have to tell Principia, not Principia, sorry, MechJeb, what stages to use and how to use them properly. So we start out with the early shutoff stage, and that's the one we want to optimize on. That's the RL10 engine, and we can see it here. So it's in number 2. The fairing is here as well. So let's get in the fairing earlier. Maybe in between those stages to lose some weight. And then so we say the last stage is going to be stage 1. And we want to also optimize on stage 1. So now we are burning fully through our first stage and second stage, and it's only going to use as much as needed of the fuel of the third stage. So engaging the autopilot again, we can see now the calculations are correct. So we are at 200, and MechJeb now without atmosphere and anything predicts that we have like 4.6 kms of DeltaV left. It will be less. There will be losses through atmospheric drag until we really go into the vacuum guidance part of the prima vector guidance. But yeah, it should do the trick. So I'm going to go with hot staging for my stage here. So it means that it's going to ignite the engine because that engine has a spool up time of almost 2.8 seconds. So it will start the engine a bit earlier before decoupling. So if you just start right now, we didn't plan our ascent correctly, and then we will just have we will be going around Earth a little bit like this. We can see it right here, and there's no way for us to really hit the moon in a proper way on a TLI burn with the parameters we expect it to be like 3.2 kms. So we have that lunar transfer planner here open, and it tells us so the first window is going to be soon, 14 hours. Let's just swap for that. So, well, we might have been close to that one, but yeah. So we are now in a window for actual launch. So yeah, let's just give it a try. We launch. We're gonna go a little bit on the time here. Try to get this into orbit. So to actually optimize your ascent, what you would like to do or what you want to do is mess with the booster pitch start. So that's the time or state of the rocket that starts that pitch towards your desired heading, and then the pitch rate, and in my case it's 0.6 degrees per second, and I'm going to start once the rocket reaches 75 meters per second. You can use MechJeb, and then on the flight recorder to actually see when the transition happens. So I'm usually going to go Q, AOA, and pitch, and so we can here now see when the rocket actually pitches for the, there it is, for the vacuum guidance. And to optimize this trajectory, that pitch should stay as minimal as possible. Now we had the hot staging and the release of the stage, turning on ECS because it's now starting to rotate, releasing fairing, and you can see now we're at like 4.19. Connection isn't that bad of DeltaV left. Yeah, so essentially if you use MechJeb for that ascent profile, mess with your pitch, booster pitch start and pitch rate until you have smooth transition to vacuum guidance from within MechJeb. Because before it goes to vacuum guidance, it will just use those two parameters to plan your, and of course the inclination setting here, but to plan your pitch program until you hit a trigger, and I think that's going. The trigger itself is going to be the dynamic pressure. That's going to be what is like 10,000 kilopascal of dynamic pressure, and when that reaches that, so going down. So if it's coming from a high dynamic pressure and just reaches then 10,000, MechJeb is going to switch to the primer vector guidance, essentially, and then giving you the ability to optimize that flight path. It can really make a difference. So mess around with it, and I've just had an engine failure. So yeah, restart messed up. I'll see you back in a few seconds. Hey, super editing skills. We're back in action. Engine ignited now, and we're doing our last 160 seconds to burn until we're in orbit. Yes, that's it so far. And from there on, we will then plan our translunar injection. As we recall, we probably need about 3,150 meters per second on that second burn on that engine to do that transfer. While we wait for that, and I'll just do the time at 10 on here, and let's turn down the volume a bit. Yes, what is if we're not just gonna go to the moon and to planet? So basically with RP1, usually the transfer window planner comes with it. So let's say we want to go to Mars, we want to plan that. So we're flying from Cape, so usually we're gonna want to go 28.55, and our initial orbit is going to be at 200 kilometers in my case. And so the final orbit at Mars, that's going to be 20,000. So we do an insertion, and then let's plot it and see where we want to start off. So right now it gives us a date, and we can easily add this date to our KC alarm, and it will get all the data with it. And this is the important part. So it will tell us the injection inclination. So in this case, it's going to be 28.55, so the inclination we are going to have. It's going to tell us the total delta V the spacecraft needs to have, what we need for ejection, so that's going to be like 3.6, and for insertion it's going to be 2.5 to go into an orbit. If we want to go for, let's say, Venus, plot it here, so we can, injection is going to stay the same, angle is going to stay the same in this case. It's going to go for Jupiter. It's also Saturn. Okay, yeah, sometimes it's going to go up, depending on if that inclination is going to be higher. But let's say my orbit is going to be 0 degrees. We're going to go plot it, and we can see now that the injection angle is going to be the optimal angle. It's going to be 11.25. It means if you are in a high inclination orbit and you can't go down, you are going to have to adjust your spacecraft to accommodate for this, for the inclination change you need to do as well. And it's going to make planning a bit more difficult. Say difficult, but as long as your ejection inclination, so this here is going to be the same inclination as the inclination of your orbit, you just have to burn prograde. So you just have to fine tune one parameter, more or less. But right now, let's use Principia to get us to the moon. For that, we are going to open up the Principia menu. So it's going to be a little bit bigger this time, and you should be able to read this a little bit more better, or a little bit better. So plotting frame is going to be Earth central initial. So that's how it's going to be plotted out. It's not really helpful. We can go, and the first step should be to select the plotting frame that incorporates the relative frame of reference for you and for your maneuver planning to picture what you want to do. So what's best for your use case? So in our case, it's going to be the Moon-Earth orbit. So the Moon-Earth orbit is referenced, and you can also see a little explanation here what those frames are going to be used for, and this is going to be for flybys of the moon or transfers to or from it, from the Earth. So taking this into account, you can see this shifting a bit. Let's create a flight plan, and let's say we need one maneuver, and that maneuver is going to go for 3,150 meters per second prograde. And so the plan length, it's going to be for 5 days. So it's going to be plotting out for 5 days. And you can see now the trajectory that the spacecraft is going to do during 5 days. So if we go back to our initial inertial frame, reference frame, we can see this is going to be difficult on deciding, am I going to intercept the moon or am I not? So we want to go Moon-Earth orbit, and this is the same. It's just the map looking at it differently. So depending on how much physics or math you had at school, you're just doing a shift in the reference frame. So the initial parameters are all going to stay the same. It's just plotted out differently. Yeah. So I think in special relativity you call it a Lorentz transformation if you transform between reference frames. Yeah. So but we can see here a little bit better when we are going to intercept the moon. And for that we'll just do our T initial. So when is that burn going to happen? We already know this is the ballpark range of a prograde burn right now at the right inclination. So let's go around, and we can see this now: 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 10 minutes. So it's gonna go around, and then we come closer to where we want to go. And so let's double click the moon here real quick and zoom a bit in on the moon so we can see our trajectory coming in. So it's a little bit low right now, but it's going to come up. It's going to come up, and there you are. You already have a good encounter, right? So the periapsis now is like 12,000 kilometers, 12,000 meters. No, 12,000 kilometers on this one. So we can mess around this with this now a little bit manually. So let's go down to the 3,000, like 140. That's already looking pretty good, right? But since a few patches, we already have that optimize button in here. So for that optimize button to work properly, you need to get fairly close. But once you're here, let's say, so we need an altitude of just like 100,000 meters, and the inclination. Do we want to use inclination? Yeah, we are going to use inclination. The inclination of 0 is good, so we go like around like on the equator. It's not really the equator, but I guess you know what I mean by that. So just press optimize, and since we're already not fairly, there you go. And now it's going to bring us up there. And that's all we needed, right? So this is now the planned periapsis for our burn, and that burn is going to happen soon. So right now that burn isn't showing up, so we click show on nav ball, and there you are. So the burn is going to happen in 1 hour and 19 minutes, and it should bring us here. Not perfectly, but we'll see how that works out. So we got limited probe control right now. So back to MechJeb, we need that. So we need the smartass. Yeah, with like 5 viewers, I'm now gonna probably get demonetized. So it's like from 0 cents to 0 cents or something. And let's move this over here. And so what we need, or what we want to go for, is now we want to get our spacecraft to align to that node already. So I'll just go press node here. MechJeb is already getting us to the node. Once that is done, it's up to you how you execute that node. So I'll be using KOS script for that. So it's a bit small here. So let's get that a bit bigger. So once that's set up properly, so switch to 0. Signal loss, yeah. So I don't have signal right now because I don't have, like, this is a sandbox, I don't have any communication. Satellites in orbit. There you go. So we got signal switching to 0. So run node.ks. So now the node is running. So it will now, the program will now run even if signal is lost, and execute. So it's going to auto warp me to that point in time, and from there on. So MechJeb is going to realign real quick. And we can also see here very clearly on the nav ball that it is going to be a completely pro-grade burn. We have a little bit of normal and binormal burn in it, just because we need to, we adjusted it, or we optimized that burn to go in a zero inclination on a zero inclination pass on the moon. So yeah, burn has started. And we are going to expect to have about 3,131 DeltaV in total of burn. And we can also see this here in the maneuver DeltaV. And it's almost going to be 4 minutes. So yeah, let's take our time here and enjoy the view. I get the new RSS reborn by Ballistic Fox in here with very high textures. So moon is going to be like, what, I think it's 96K textures on moon. It is, you probably can't really see this on YouTube, but it's pretty, it's amazing. Also big shout out to the Mars textures and also the new Mars model. So if you ever go for Mars, run here, Venus, Mars. That's some really pretty eye candy. Right. One thing that you need to consider when doing maneuvers, especially so for Moon Earth, it's not like if you do that TLI on a Hohmann transfer for Moon Earth orbit, it's not that important. But right now we've done the maneuver frame selection to Moon Earth orbit. Let's say we want to go to Mars. You're plotting in a MSO reference frame to get that in. But actually, what you want to do is, if you done your orbit right and your inclination is correct, is the maneuver itself shouldn't be in that reference frame, but it should be in the Earth's reference frame, because you just want to do a tangent on that movement, so you actually want to burn prograde on your actual Earth orbit. We will see that later down, and if I keep doing more tutorials when we want to go to Mars or Venus or somewhere else. Yeah. So now, since we're picking up some DeltaV, let's go back real quick here, and we now can see those deviations here, and that's actually what the spacecraft is going to do. It's going to do that circly lines when we look at the Mars Sun orbit right now. But let's go back to the MEO. So how that is going to look now, and we can see the orbit extending. And when we get close, it will the script will going to turn the burn off, or you will, or MechJeb, it's not going to be 100%, and then we can see that here. And what I will do then usually is use H and N on the keyboard with the RCS thrusters to fine tune it a bit, to be head on. But with our luck, it's probably going to be more or less a head-on landing with the script. I've never had that before, but yeah. Let's see. So now coming up, getting close. And there you are. Okay, so we can see now that the script now cut off the engines, and we're actually going to do an impact. So we probably need a little bit more plus delta V. Now we burn a bit more, so it's minus delta V. So I'm just going to hold N for the correction here, and there you are. So let's delete the maneuver, let's rebase, and we can now see that we're on a course to moon with periapsis of 170 kilometers. So that's actually what you wanted to achieve. So from there on, it's just basic math again, and yeah, basic physics. So you're gonna go to a moon-centered reference frame right now for that burn, and we will see that we will reach periapsis now in 3 days 16. So we're gonna plan that next burn to 3 days and 16 hours. And they can see that's our burn. So that's a little bit too far out. But that's going to be a little bit too far. There you want to go. Okay, so let's now go back and utilize our tools. Let's utilize the DeltaV map. So we need 820 meters per second to go from a TLI to a low moon orbit. And let's just do that. So that's going to be 820, but obviously we need to do it a minus sign on it because we need to decelerate here to get captured. And let's see what happens. And there you go. Magic, isn't it? Or physics, basically. But yeah, with the tools we've had at hand, we've seen that we just used the 820 meters delta V, and now you are in a zero inclination orbit, which is almost almost round, right? So that eccentricity is probably what is like 0.03 or something. Let's take a look. Final orbit analysis. So, oh yeah, 0.015 or 16. So it's a rather spherical orbit we planned just using that delta V tool and planning our burn correctly. Yeah, that's it. And this is how you use Principia to get to the moon.